About 3 years ago, I presented at a conference in Canberra. It was a Lions Convention conference, and I had a lot of interest from a lot of the people there, from the Lions there. And we also had a stall, and we were selling some of our books. One of the books we had more recently is called Dancing with Memories, a book that was written by Sally Yule in partnership with me and Maggie Beer. And it was to get young children aware of dementia, and also to start early with eating healthy. So we had some beautiful lunchbox recipes from Maggie Beer at the end of the book. Anyway, this gentleman was in a wheelchair, and he comes up to me, and he first bought one book, and then he bought a second book. And that was Lion Brian Shaw. He said, my wife's got dementia, and I'm going to give it to the nursing home there. And I had a throwaway comment to him, and I said, if you need anything, please feel free to contact me. So a few weeks later, he contacts me and said, Ralph, I'd like you to come to the Gold Coast and help educate the community about Alzheimer's disease. He said, I'd like to donate some money so that people in the community have a greater understanding of Alzheimer's disease, just getting the message out there, and also where they could go for more information and for help. And that's where it started.
My name is Leo McManus, Chairman of the Lions Alzheimer's Foundation. The Foundation's primary aim is to support Professor Ralph Martins AO and his team of researchers on an urgent mission to find a cure or at least a slowing of the disease. We fund his team of researchers across Australia. We fund the purchase of cutting-edge research equipment, and we also conduct awareness campaigns throughout Australia so that people have a better understanding of Alzheimer's. The urgency of Professor Martins' research cannot be overstated. Continued funding is critical.
I've been working in Alzheimer's disease for the last 40 years. And I got involved in Alzheimer's disease research because my father-in-law was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at the age of 60. And I thought I'd learn a little bit about the disease and help the family. 30 years later, my wife developed Alzheimer's disease. And it's devastating. The first time it was devastating watching my father-in-law decline, but it's even more devastating now seeing how someone who was so articulate, so together, done a lot for Alzheimer's research herself, now decline this way. It is devastating, and it really gives me a feel for many other people in the community who have family members who are going through this, because only you know the tragedy and the sorrow of a loved one just disappearing in front of your eyes.
Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of death in Australian older adults, and also worldwide it has become a major concern. The reason is that it does rob people from their memories, but also it is a significant cause of death, which we all want to prevent in any cost. One of the things that people ask me regularly is that, how do I know if I've got Alzheimer's or not? I've been losing my memory, I have difficulty with finding the right word when I'm talking to people, I couldn't remember names, and so on. So that's the main question, that have I got Alzheimer's?
Most people think about memory. Mom or dad's memory has declined, and that is a big factor. I think that's a common feature across most people with Alzheimer's disease, but there's much more to that. We do see changes in behavior, and there are mood swings. Paranoia is a big issue in Alzheimer's disease, even sometimes well before the memory declines significantly. So it's a combination of these factors that we need to pay attention to. There's clearly genetic risk factors, but for the vast majority, we say the disease is sporadic. Any member of the community can get Alzheimer's disease.
I lost my mother, my sister, and my cousin to Alzheimer's dementia. Having to step in as a carer, my life changed because you're focused now on caring for somebody who used to care for you. All family members noticed that my mother was going down. She wasn't cleaning the house the way she used to. She was telling us things over and over. She was quite a stubborn English lady. She wouldn't go to the doctor, and we couldn't get her to the doctor.
Anxiety about receiving a diagnosis of Alzheimer's is extremely common. The first step is to receive a referral from a GP to a memory clinic or a psychologist to do or undergo neuropsychological assessment. Everybody is scared of receiving the diagnosis that their memory is failing to a degree that there is pretty much nothing to be done at this stage. Later on, we will have treatments, but at this stage, there is no treatment available. So people are scared about such diagnosis, and therefore, we need to make sure to provide them with the best information.
When people start getting Alzheimer's disease at the early stages, they can still care for themselves. But as the disease progresses, they lose the ability to look after themselves.
When my mother had to go into interim care, that was a terrible time for me because I just felt so guilty about her going and other people looking after her. But it had to be done.
Family members are the best doctors. They can pick it up much, much earlier, and they're the ones who should be encouraged to help the family member go and get an early diagnosis. If your family member is showing signs, try to get that person to go to see their GP to get an assessment. There are also memory clinics throughout the country. We have a partnership of major research groups working together called the Alzheimer's Network. We have access to screening in every major city in Australia, as well as memory clinics, and the service is free to all participants. We've now come to recognize that Alzheimer's disease begins very early, like 20 years before the onset of symptoms. We believe that it's a small protein called Beta Amyloid, and it's a buildup of amyloid in different regions of our brain. And the region that gets the most buildup initially is called the hippocampus. It's a region to do with memory and learning, and that's why we see that as one of the early symptoms. And close to it are regions to do with our behavior. But as the disease progresses, this amyloid spreads throughout the brain, affecting other areas of our functioning. But it takes many years before this amyloid actually starts killing brain cells. That's why early diagnosis is critical.
Amyloid plaques, depending on how progressed they are, then they result into disturbances in the brain that can end up with accumulation of another protein in the brain called tau. So tau, which is a normal protein in the brain of everybody and is produced by all the neurons. However, as the disease progresses, amyloid plaques and tau's accumulation affect the brain to a degree that no longer we can do the functions that we used to do. My job is mostly towards individuals who are at preclinical stage of Alzheimer's disease. What we do is to come up with a clinical assessment to establish a baseline. Then over time, we will ask the participant or the patient to come to us again to repeat that assessment so that we can confirm there is a decline. In relation to risk of Alzheimer's disease, one of the most important steps is assessment. What does that mean? That means that if I have significant concerns about my memory, my behavior, my ability to communicate with others and so on, then definitely I should go and do some assessments. But one of the things that people really ignore is hearing loss. We know that hearing loss is number one modifiable risk factor in prevention of Alzheimer's disease. And it is one of the main risk factors that we have something to prevent or to manage it. Hearing loss can be supported by hearing aids, by cochlear implantation, and so on. So at any stage of hearing loss, there are hopes that people can go and do something about it, and if they do it, they minimize the risk of dementia. This does not mean that hearing loss causes Alzheimer's disease. However, it contributes to the cognitive decline, which is part of Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementia.
If you are deaf, get those hearing aids put in. Go and have a test. Don't put it off, because my mother and my sister were both very deaf and they would not wear their hearing aids. They missed out on life.
The disease can affect people of all ages, though people who are much older have a higher risk. So the older we get, the greater the risk. The bottom line is, while we know that genes play a significant role, and there are many different genetic risk factors, lifestyle matters. And we believe it's as much as 50% of people who get Alzheimer's disease, lifestyle factors make a difference. We've come to increasingly understand that diet plays a major role in risk of Alzheimer's disease.
Our results have shown that the Western diet has been detrimental to brain health, and this includes things like fast food, fried food, lots of sweets and pastries. So these are definitely things that we'd recommend reducing and limiting in your diet for their effect on the brain health and cognitive decline. We've looked at a lot of individual nutrients and food items, and we found that coffee intake was beneficial in slowing the accumulation of amyloid beta protein. The Mediterranean diet is a popular diet that has received a lot of attention, and along with the MIND diet, which is a combination of the Mediterranean diet and a diet to reduce hypertension, have shown very promising results in being beneficial to cognitive decline.
Virtually everyone who has post-sleep, their risk of Alzheimer's increased markedly. And the work of Professor Stephanie Rennie-Smith clearly demonstrates that in our Australian population.
Sleep is really important. It's important for the health of the body and also the health of the mind. So we know that sleep is actually the third pillar of good health, along with a healthy diet and being physically active. We're starting to understand now how critically important sleep is for a healthy mind, and particularly for preventing diseases such as Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. During sleep, we cycle through different stages, and these sleep cycles generally last between 90 and 120 minutes. The first stage of sleep is light, so N1 it's called. Then we move into a slightly deeper stage of sleep where it becomes difficult to awaken someone. And then after that, we move into deep sleep. And from there, we move into REM sleep, so rapid eye movement sleep when we're dreaming. Now, these last two stages, particularly the deep sleep, are what we think are most important for laying down memory and sweeping out the toxins from the brain that accumulate during the day. And also REM sleep, we know, has a particularly important role to play in terms of laying down memory whilst we're sleeping. So it's important that we get through those first two stages of sleep, the light sleep, and into the deeper sleep, so that we can really get the benefit for brain health.
Physical activity does make a big difference. It helps clear the amyloid out of our brain as one of its approaches.
Exercise is one of the 12 modifiable risk factors for Alzheimer's. Exercise can help with brain function, not only the way you feel afterwards, but also with the way that we're able to concentrate and retain memories. So the best form is a combination of both your aerobic huff and puff type exercise, which might look like walking or swimming, in combination with your resistance-based exercise, which might be weights at the gym, but can also be done at home with even your body weight, like squats, or some resistance bands that you can get from the gym store or something like Kmart.
I was at a coffee shop getting a coffee, and they had a poster on the wall that was looking for people to come and help with this study, and I thought, this is an important thing to be doing. The focus of it, which I found really interesting, is the impact of lifestyle, including diet, exercise, brain training, and socializing, its impact on prevention of Alzheimer's. So doing this study has given me a purpose. We have a number of friends in our social group who are experiencing a cognitive deficit, Alzheimer's. and watching them decline and being very aware that if there's anything that can be done to prevent Alzheimer's in the future, I'm happy to be a part of anything that will contribute to that. Having never been a gym person, in fact having actively disliked the gym, I started rather reluctantly, and now I am completely hooked on it. It has made a huge difference in my life. I feel fitter, stronger, healthier on a daily basis. Even my brain training that we have to do as part of the study, I do much better after a gym session. You're never too old to start something, and had it not been for being encouraged to go to the gym 3 times a week, I never would have discovered how fantastic it is for all levels of my health and well-being.
Currently, I think prevention is the key. So we start early, lifestyle prevention approaches, and we can delay the onset. Nutritional compounds are going to be very important. We already know there's one food supplement called discriminate that's been through tremendous clinical trials showing to have a very powerful effect on slowing people's decline from MCI to AD, and people already have Alzheimer's disease, it tends to stabilize them. I believe there's going to be a combination of treatments. So one is the anti-amyloid drugs, where people will have to be tested before they have access to the anti-amyloid drugs. Anti-amyloid drug detection now for diagnosis requires a brain scan, a PET amyloid brain scan, which looks at the amyloid in our brains. But they're not cheap. They cost about $4,000 to $5,000 a scan. And there's no way, when everyone wants to be tested for it, will we have facilities to be able to accommodate them. So what my team and I have been focusing on is developing a blood test. Can we diagnose Alzheimer's disease through a blood test? We can now measure proteins in the blood that reflect what's happening in the brain. And the only way we've been able to do that is by having a state-of-the-art machine called the Simoa that costs almost $400,000 that was purchased for us by the Lions Alzheimer's Foundation. That's been a game changer for us. They also raised another few $100,000 to buy us a state-of-the-art camera to look at amyloid in the eye. And that's also going to be another game changer, which would probably be relatively cheap to be scanned, have an eye scan throughout the country. So those are 2 major examples of what the Lions Alzheimer's Foundation funding has done for us. We're now looking at potential treatment approaches. We're looking at a machine that actually stimulates the brain electrically. It's already been done in Europe and shown to have benefits for people with Alzheimer's. It's been started to be done in America. It's never been done in Australia. The Lions Alzheimer's Foundation has just spent $500,000 for us to acquire these machines. One for the Australian Alzheimer's Research Foundation here and one at Macquarie University. And that'll be a first for Alzheimer's in this country. The drug trials seem to be having the greatest impact on people whose amyloid pathology is the lowest. So that the disease hasn't progressed as much. And for the very first time at our major Alzheimer conference, they're showing an improvement. That's something we've never seen in these people who have less pathology in their brain. That's why it's crucial that you get tested much earlier. I have a passion for Alzheimer's. I really want to make a difference. I want to see people with Alzheimer's disease have the disease even stopped. So that's where we come from. And I have a unique team. Everyone's passionate about it. We all work collaboratively together. My main man is Mr. Kevin Tadai, who's amazing. I'd say he's professor 3 times over, even though he refused to get a PhD. He's been with me for 31 years. But because I had someone of this caliber and this passion, he's basically enriched our team in so many ways. And that's how we were able to do more and more programs of research. Our goal to families out there is that we need to do whatever we can to boost them up, to give them the best quality of life. Because the person is not lost, the person is still there. They feel, they sense. You know, you go to say for dinner out there, try to get them engaged in the conversation. People sometimes just rattle off among themselves and then that person is excluded. There are many things we can do because, you know, that person needs to feel the love and the support from all of us. All the funds that are raised through the Lions Alzheimer's Foundation, there's virtually no administrative costs. So it all goes to research. We're so grateful to the Lions Alzheimer's Foundation for making this happen. These people are just heroes. They're my heroes. The advances that have recently been made in targeting the underlying cause of Alzheimer's disease gives us incredible hope.